Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special event today called 3 Keys to Mastering Your Soul's Evolution, Discovering Your Guides, Soul Archetype, and Interplanetary Past Lives. So my name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the president and CEO of the Shift Network, and I love to go to the frontiers of our knowledge and really open up to new possibilities and new portals of information. And there are a few people that we can learn as much from in this regard than our guest today, Dr. Linda Backman. She is a remarkable author, regressionist, psychologist. She had a more traditional background as a psychologist, then started opening up to the further reaches of our soul, which really stretch beyond this lifetime into interplanetary or between lifetimes time and even into interplanetary existence, which is a fascinating new area that I don't know a lot about. So she's been a licensed psychologist for nearly 40 years. She has trained numerous people in hypnotherapy, in between lives, soul regression therapy, and different kinds of shamanic soul retrieval work. She's has the academic rigor and a real exploratory spirit that can take us to the frontiers of new knowledge. So thank you so much for joining us, Linda, and welcome.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be with you.
Great. Well, so why don't we start a little bit. First, I want to say we're going to have this hour with Linda, and we want to get as much information as we can from her. And this isn't necessarily the end of the journey for you. You have a chance to go much deeper in an upcoming 7-week program, a brand new program. We'll share more about that. It's called Soul Evolution Mastery, and really goes into some fascinating new terrain. We'll share about that towards the end today. So, Linda, let's begin a little bit. So clearly you had a background as a more conventional psychologist and then started to open up to these higher dimensions of ourselves, or deeper dimensions, maybe is a better term. Share a little bit about why that became so you made such a pivot from a more conventional psychological understanding into the really focusing on past lives and other lifetimes as a key to unlocking our potential.
Well, that's a great question, Stephen. I think in some ways, and now it's been about 25 years ago, I tried not to pivot. I think the left brain side of me, which can be very strong, thought this was just a little bit on the fringes and maybe a little bit woo-woo. And yet I couldn't hold back. I was fascinated. And so very long story short, I had a very important and significant colleague in my life die in his early 30s from a type of lung cancer. And suddenly I started having spiritual experiences that I thought, back then anyway, I thought were a little bit weird and strange. He started talking to me from the other side. I could intuit what he was telling me, and I began to see scenes in my mind of past lives. Thankfully, I had people in my life that didn't think that was so weird, and they helped support me. And honestly, I couldn't hold back. This will sort of fit into the course also. It's like when our guides and our guidance show up and they start sort of, you might say, pounding on our door, as they did for me, I decided, to answer the door and not fully run away. So psychologist turned, still psychologist, but regression therapist.
Well, I think that, we probably don't want to go into the evidence for past lives here. I mean, I think what we'll do is just assume that people are open to hearing about what you've discovered in your extensive work in this area, and really what the implications are now for us, our understanding of ourselves, and ultimately our role on this planet. And probably the best place, you mentioned guides, to start is this whole notion of guidance, which has been part of a lot of new paradigm, new consciousness thinking, but actually goes way back into shamanic shamanic cultures that are accessing, higher forces, ancestors that offer specific guidance for us in the moment. So maybe you should share not so much like how we got the information, but what have you learned about the nature of guides and their influence and role in our existence? Well,
I mean, basically, I have no doubt that we all have guides. In this course, we'll be talking about different kinds of guides, but our guides show us direction, and then we make choice. So yes, I mean, the earliest cultures that were spiritual on our planet, as most people know, are those indigenous cultures, many that still exist. Indigenous cultures often, not always, but often envision guides in animal form. That makes perfect sense to me, and I work with people all the time that envision their guides in all kinds of ways, whether they're in an energetic form, a color, a light, a flame. Guides can also be angelic presence, angelic beings. So with people that often have not thought of the term spiritual guide, I like to call them, for those people, guardian angels. But what I know is that our guides are benevolent. They're not malevolent. They place experiences in front of us, just as they did for me, and we choose whether to follow. Basically, we're never alone. Guides are always with us. We're the ones that at times forget to listen. They don't go away, but they also like to be requested. Guides aren't necessarily going to be there unless we're open and we basically say out loud or internally, give me a sign, give me a direction, take me to the bookstore and show me a book. They're always with us, and we all have guides.
Well, I think what you're pointing to there is really important, that it's a voluntary relationship. I think some people might think that when you open to guides, you're sort of taking orders, if you will, like, oh, you're just supposed to do everything they say, but that's not really the case, right?
No, well, that's a great way to put it. No, we always have free will. When we're in body, that's a key aspect of being in body, is honoring our own free will. I suspect, and I guess I should say I know from working with people, that at times our guides, they might keep bringing something back around and sticking it under our nose, because sometimes we don't listen. So we're human. They are not human. We at times don't listen. So they just simply bring it back around. They're only minimally frustrated. They don't leave us. They're ever present.
Now, I know that we always use the term plural, and we've talked a little about a council of guides or multiple guides. So why are there multiple guides, and how do we, in a way, reconcile some of the differences of opinion or different influences?
Well, I'll come at that, Stephen, almost from from 10 moving down to 1. So I'll just say that I'm going to be talking a lot about guides in this course, and to some degree, dependent on where we've had the bulk of our lives, guides can be a little bit different. But simplistically, we always have at least one main guide. So there is virtually always you might say a predominant, or, the main teacher in the school. But then we take classes, you might say, to use it as an analogy, we take classes in our learning, particularly in body. Then we have other guides with, you might say, unique skills or background, and that can make up what some people like to call a team, a panel, a council. I've heard them called all kinds of things like chief elders. I've at times heard them called the big guns, the big dudes. And I'll just add in also, of course, guides may or may not have gender. And of course, guides can, if they do have gender, come in the form of male and female guides. So we tend to have a team, but we always have a lead main guide.
And share a little bit about how they can also be working with different areas of our life. I know some, in a way, there's like a body guide or a mind guide. Share a little bit more about how there's a kind of a lead in different areas of our lives.
Yeah. I love how you have awareness and expanded awareness, which is super and wonderful. So it goes into those kinds of questions. Yes, I mean we have a main guide, period, that helps us in all ways. But we do have guides that help us in various aspects, whether it's something physical that we're dealing with, whether it's something terribly mental, maybe it's an educational choice. And so we have guides in some ways are just like we are as people. They have their own both past life experience and soul level experience. So they bring the wisdom and the, sort of the coursework, if you will, of their own experience to help us. And they serve in different roles and different aspects of our life.
So share a little bit more about how you might go about involving a conversation or a dialogue or an exchange with a guide to kind of get the maximum benefit for our lives.
Well, I'll first say that we can talk out loud or in our head. It doesn't matter. They hear us, so we don't have to talk out loud. I'll just insert a brief comment about intuition, because when we connect with our guides, which we'll be talking about, I'll be teaching about helping people understand how to receive from their guides. So they talk to us through mental image, through emotion, through body sensation, through almost like auditory, like we hear them. And very important, they talk to us through thought. They guide us. I would suggest to people, and again, we'll be doing experiential work in this course, I would suggest to people that they need to set aside time in their life to connect with guides, because it's so easy for our day to get so busy. I tend to focus on my guides morning before my day gets really busy, maybe before the energy of the earth gets so busy, and evening, nighttime. But it's almost like it helps to build it in, almost like we build in exercise. It helps to build in time with our guides on a regular basis.
How does the work with guides relate to this notion of soul intentions, that there's kind of deeper purposes for each incarnation that we come in with?
Yeah. Also, beautiful question. So we come into body with life intention. We come into body with intention to grow and evolve. We come in to clean up past experience, which we usually call karma, and to bring in the skills and learnings that have come from other basically lives and what we've gained. So our guides know what our life contract looks like. We have a life contract. They want to help keep us on track. Can they force us to be on track? No, they don't have that power. Can they encourage us to be on track? Do they have the ability to sort of make certain things work and certain things not work? Like, I've been working in a particular field and I'm going to leave this job. And I thought about, starting to work in a different field. But first I go and think, I'd be more comfortable. I'll go look for a job in an office manager position. Doesn't happen, doesn't happen, doesn't happen. Why? Because that's not the direction our guides want us to go in. They're trying to encourage us to move in a direction that follows our life intention. So, bottom line is we have a life that has intention. We can add on intention. We can keep evolving through a lifetime and sort of create addendums, if you will, to our life intention. Our guides try their darndest to keep us on track.
It's great that we have this constant. So it seems like that they're always. Do we have to kind of update them about what's going on, or do they feel like they're kind of more constantly aware of what's going on in our lives?
Yeah, that's cool too that you're saying that. I used to think, well, do my guides listen to me all the time? I mean, over the course of many years, I finally learned, took me a long time to hear my guides, to receive, and I'll be sharing that and teaching about that. So I used to think, oh my gosh, they're going to know what's going on. They're going to know the decisions I make. They're going to know if I do something that they don't want me to do. They're cool with that. They sort of serve as a backboard, if you will. They do tune into us. They do know what's going on. The flip side of that is we also have to say what we want. We have to say what we want, and we have to put intention in the direction of what we want. We can't just kind of sit back and say, well, bring me the best new job or bring me the best new life partner. It's okay. I want a new life partner, which actually I don't, but some people do. Then I have to take action to find a way, find means of creating what I want. The guides don't do all the work for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine there's a little bit of alignment. So you have your intentions coming to them, but then they know more probably than we do about our soul intentions. So there's a little bit of kind of getting those things to sync up.
Right. Right. And they help us. That's my story of having this, what I thought was a really odd experience 25 years ago with my colleague talking to me from the other side. They knew what they were doing. I think probably the soul of my colleague knew what was happening. But I had to decide to whether to get on board or not get on board, obviously. And I was reluctant. I want people to know I have a skeptical side. I thought, oh, is this real? And, do we really have a soul? And what happens when we die? How do we plan our lives? What's the nature of our soul? Where have we had our past lives? It took me a while to buy into that because I thought it was so, unique and different.
Well, I'd love for you to just maybe share a little bit of an overview again about what are the best ways to connect with guides. And so there's the dancing with them, understanding the intentions and alignment. But I think for a lot of people, it's just simply opening the portal of connection to begin with is the challenge. So what do you find are the best methods?
I think the best method is figuring out, first step is figuring out, are you mostly left-brained? Are you mostly right-brained? That's going to help you figure out how to open to your guides. I'm not as left-brained as I used to be, but I used to be pretty solidly left-brained. My guides talk to me in my mind. If you're very right-brained, your guides probably talk to you through emotion. They trigger emotion to help us move forward. Something feels right, something doesn't feel right. Some of us are also very body-centered. We feel stress in our body. I know a lot of people like this, where when their guides are trying to get their attention, there's a particular body symptom, and that helps them to know their guide is there.
Fascinating. Well, so now we've got a bit of an understanding of guides, and I know you're going to go much deeper in your upcoming course, but let's talk a little bit about this notion of seven soul archetypes. This is something I wasn't aware of until a decade or so ago, and there's part of this comes through the ageless wisdom tradition and some of Alice Bailey, and it's a little bit esoteric, but I want you to really paint the picture because it really does feel like it's central for understanding our unique trajectory of soul evolution. So first of all, what are the seven soul archetypes and why are they important for us to understand?
Okay, and I want to be clear so people begin to think about this and don't necessarily associate it with, is it exactly the seven rays that comes from theosophy? Is it, someone else's description? And how I learned this is from my clients. I began to learn more and more about soul nature, immortal soul orientation, or soul archetype. So, simply, to kind of make it simplistic if we can, if we take the highest level of soul energy, we can call it the source, great spirit, God, the divine, it doesn't matter what we call it. That highest level of soul energy or high frequency needs to be brought to Earth. That's how each of us will evolve, but it's how our Earth will evolve. It's how humanity will evolve. So for each of us, before we began incarnating with our guide, it was determined which of the seven archetypes would be our immortal soul archetype. And that became our archetype that doesn't change lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. 3 of the archetypes are more left-brained. 3 of the archetypes are more right-brained. And basically, the 7th archetype is really a compilation, an amalgamation, if you will, of all 6. They're all equal. They all need to work together and work, you might say, in sequence, so that I'll just give a quick example. I'm number 3, if you will, soul archetype. My mother was number 1. I had to learn how to deal with the energy of the first archetype, which is different than my archetype. She had to learn to deal with my archetype, which is quite left-brained. So we work in conjunction with each other, and as souls incarnate on the earth, we bring our soul archetype to the planet because it's going to assist the evolution. And I know this is a very esoteric kind of statement, but it's going to help our planet evolve. And I think probably most listeners, if not all listeners, are saying, yes, and humanity and the earth needs evolution.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, so in many ways, the 7 soul archetypes are part of you call it the deep structure of the universe, like literally how souls are created, and then gives us some orientation to how they work together. So how do you maybe if you could share a little bit of a description or essence of each soul archetype and how you can recognize that that's yours? Like you said, you're the 3rd archetype.
Yeah, and as I share this, it's going to be brief, and it will be much easier in the course where I can dive deep into each of the soul archetypes, because the description sometimes takes a fair amount of understanding and explanation. So for those listening, kind of just take this in and work with it. So the first soul archetype is basically the archetype of the initial force of the power of the highest frequency in the universe. It's strong. It's almost like, think about in your neighborhood, someone opened up a fire hydrant, and all that water, most of us have all seen that happen, just pours out. It just is forced out. That's the first energy. It's the change agent. Basically, I always think about in the computer industry, Steve Jobs, who sort of, not by himself, but with initial ideas, changed the whole nature in many ways of our computer industry. So that's left-brained. Then we come to number 2. Number 2 archetype is the softest and yet the most important in terms of equality, important in terms of making sure the full divine energy is received equally on the planet to all people. So it may be right-brained, it's crucial. Then number 3 picks up from number 2. Number 3 takes that equality of you might say, dispersing that energy and begins to make it cooperative, honors the need for equality, and makes that energy cooperative. Also, number 3 energy is very left-brained. Number 3s, people who are that third archetype, tend to love to study and learn and keep reading ad nauseum, which I understand myself quite well. Number 4 becomes right-brained again. It's basically bringing that high level of frequency to the planet in more, we might call it more modes of something that shows up in aesthetic endeavors. Could be film, could be interior design, could be music. It brings that cultural energy to our planet. Then number 5 is the easiest to explain. Number 5 is, how do we make things work? How to create logistics, basically a structure that makes things work. What's step 1? What's step 2? It's a warrior energy. It's you might say, a good administrator kind of energy. Number 6 is taking equality and putting it on steroids, working in groups where groups become self-governing, where groups work, it's a family that respects one another and each person's opinion matters, and bringing that whole group energy together. Then number 7, I like to call it the Merlin energy, or the alchemical energy. It is merging the energies of 1 through 6 and making it all fit together to create something that is sustainable and moves forward and continues, which is so badly needed on the earth. So that's a really kind of a shortened thumbnail sketch. I'll be helping people work on figuring out what's their soul archetype so they embrace it, as opposed to think they should change it or think they should fight that nature.
So we don't want, the grass is always greener. Oh, I want to be that archetype. Embracing it and expressing it better. One thing I wanted to also just highlight, which my understanding is that we can sometimes get a little confused because we can have a personality archetype that may look a little different than our soul archetype. And so we want to be able to differentiate between those two, right?
Yeah, very good comment. When we work on these archetypes and we begin to understand them, then what I say to people is, I want you to try to narrow down your draw, your pull, your comfort level with 2 or 3 of the 7. Because if you do that, you begin to figure out that one of those 2 or 3 is your soul archetype, and one of those 2 or 3 is your personality archetype. We need both. So the soul archetype essentially relates to, as I've said, bringing that particular frequency to the planet. Your personality archetype changes lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. In order to continue evolving, we have to gain capability in all 7 energies. So that's why we have both.
That's a really great point. So, as I understand it, my personality is a first ray, which has a little more of the initiator bulldog kind of energy, which sometimes people experience, like more out in front on different things. And then my soul is more of a second ray, which is a little bit more about getting everybody together as an equality. And so in ways, the Shift Network is sort of a combination of my, like, hey, I'm hosting these calls, I'm moving things forward, I'm being an entrepreneur, and I'm also creating a platform for lots of people to work together more effectively. And so that just as an example of like how, seeing that has helped me see my own function within the Shift Network in a little deeper way. And each person can apply that, right?
Right, and I might add in, I'm glad you've said that. So my soul is number 3. My personality has shifted in current life. This might seem strange to people. I came in personality-wise to my current life as a 6. I'm very, this hasn't fully changed because I still feel remnants of it. I'm very hung up on families need to get along, groups need to get along, your opinion matters, your opinion matters. It's sort of this group self-governing energy. But my personality energy shifted in my current life. My personality is also that first one, like yours, Stephen. And so what that means is we do have the energy to create change and new things and new ideas. And I love new things and new ideas. So, but that first energy is powerful. And if we have people in our life, like my mother, who now my dear mother is on the other side, but I didn't understand her very well until I understood that she was that first energy, that number 1 energy. Well, no wonder she had a pretty direct kind of approach to life and to relationships. And it's like, I just eased off some of my frustrations, you might say, when I learned that about her. So understanding both our own soul archetype and that of people around us helps us to accept people. It's like, oh, this is who you are at the core. I'm going to stop fighting that. I'm going to accept it, not just my own soul or personality archetype, but someone else in our life.
Fascinating. Well, I think you're explaining it so well. And maybe just to circle back for one key point is this sequencing or this working together. I'd love you to share a little bit about why, like, let's say in creating a business or creating a book or creating something, it can be really important to see how these different energies line up with each other.
Yeah, I'm sure you think about that, of course, because you work with a group of people on a regular basis with the Shift Network. I work with a small group of people, but I obviously work in groups and even in family. I will think about, because of what I do, I know some things about, like, I have 2 married children and children-in-law, and I know a bit about their soul archetype. And it's like, again, it causes me to be able to accept them and accept their approach to life in ways I might not have accepted them before. It's like, oh, I get my daughter-in-law, who's a very, very loving person, and she's very, very strong. And I don't struggle with that in ways that I used to, as opposed to someone else in our family. Maybe I'll just, presenting all this out here in the public eye, and people are going to go, oh, well, I'm going to talk to Linda's daughter-in-law about XYZ. Our daughter is more even-rayed. And I accept her in ways that are very different and easier to accept at this stage. So think about people we work with, think about neighbors, think about organizations that we're a part of, think about families.
That's great. Well, I think that, if we're thinking of it, it's like also in terms of lifetime after lifetime, really we're evolving to be able to work effectively with all the different rays and soul archetypes. And I think that really gives us a bit of a long-term model for curriculum for growth too.
Absolutely. And again, if we think about, we may have a soul archetype, but then we have this personality archetype. And our goal is to evolve. Our goal is to understand ourselves and keep cleaning up karma and embracing our learning that we would call dharma. Then we know we have to understand each of the 7 energies, because that's how we keep evolving. And then people might say, because often they ask me, what's the purpose of evolving? Well, it's not just to affect change on the planet and humanity. It's also for our souls to advance. And because I suspect that most, if not every single person listening to this program is not a young soul, the goal is for each of us to be able to serve in one degree or another in a guiding manner, whether it's guiding someone on Earth, or it's our soul energy that ultimately becomes a guide.
I think that's a great model for us to, it also gives a different model of like how we relate to other people. If like we're always, instead of competing for a certain role, we're always thinking about how do I leverage up to the next level, which actually takes us out of the role. Like I've been thinking more about that in terms of my own function with Shift. How do I get better at getting other people into place in the roles that I've been occupying, and then providing enough guidance to make it still work?
Right, and key aspect of growing is to bring in new energy, new people, maybe at times younger people or just new people, or to be raising children or relating to grandchildren. The planet requires what we might call succession, so that we step back and others step in. And yes, I see that in my own life, especially because I do have grandchildren, and that generation's going to ultimately take over the earth.
Let's talk about let's go to the furthest out subject we're going to cover today, which is interplanetary lifetimes. And I have to confess that I was a little like, well, do we even put this out there? Because it's like it's an extra woo. It's woo, woo, woo. And so I know that this is a big focus of your upcoming book. It's definitely outside the paradigm for a lot of folks. So let's just open up to the possibility of interplanetary lives, and why you why that's come to you, and why you're exploring it in depth, and why is it relevant?
Yeah, great question. Let me approach this from a couple of standpoints. And what I know is that basically souls came from somewhere in order to populate this planet. Souls came from somewhere tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years ago to populate the planet. And basically, when that happened, souls had to come from somewhere. Now, some of those souls continue to incarnate, we might say almost ad nauseum, here on Earth. That would be who I am. And I'm a soul that's been incarnating on Earth for a very, very, very long time. When I studied years ago, I studied with people like Dr. Michael Newton and other people. I learned and I accepted, though I thought it was a little bit different, I learned and accepted that as souls, we do have experience and evolutionary experience somewhere other than Earth. Then for me, Stephen, suddenly maybe 10 to 12 years ago, I started having a whole variety of my clients, probably about 50 to 60% of my clients, suddenly, without me directing it in that way, my clients started going to past lives not on Earth. And I began to notice this over the course of months and years, and it's like, what is this about? And I started talking to my guides in my head, and basically what I gathered was I was to learn a lot more about souls that are currently in body that have not had the bulk of their embodied or their incarnate experience on Earth. They are highly unique. They are highly gifted. They are often misunderstood. They have huge gifts and they have huge challenges. And then I began to have clients who said, I've always known I came from somewhere else. I've always known that I'm kind of an alien here, and I've always been afraid to talk about it. Linda, you understand this, and you know how to give advice, whether it's to the people I work with, who might be what I call interplanetary souls, or they have a partner, a child who is an interplanetary soul. So there are unique challenges that we can help these very advanced souls with. They're here with purpose.
So give me an example of like how discovering something about interplanetary life helped somebody do this life differently.
Oh, I'll give you a perfect example that I had yesterday, in fact. Yesterday, a man in his mid-40s came in for a regression, for a past life regression. He's very capable, very artistic, described himself as a dilettante, described himself, he's a dance teacher by training. He's very gifted artistically and particularly with dance. And I didn't say anything to him about interplanetary souls and interplanetary life, which I don't unless the client brings it up before the regression. I guided the past life regression. He went into a non-Earth experience. His guides worked with him. They helped him to understand more of where he comes from and why he's here now. And they helped him energetically be more grounded in his body, to be more grounded on Earth, to bring his gifts here. So we closed the regression, and then I began to process with him, and I said, well, how does this feel to you? And, it's where being a psychologist and asking open-ended questions I always think is so important. How does this feel to you? Because I wasn't sure. And he said, I've always known I wasn't from here. I've always known that I'm very, very different. I want to be here, but I've always known I came from somewhere else. And now it's been validated. And Linda, I didn't think you would understand this, but you do. What I know, Stephen, is there are a zillion people that could come to me as clients. Some of them will go to other regression therapists, and some will come to me. I think there's a guidance process that sometimes these people show up in my office because I understand them, even though I'm not an interplanetary soul.
One question, do you find that the 7 archetypes actually transport from planet to planet, that we're actually the same archetype no matter which planet we're on, or is that something that's unique to Earth or this cycle that we're on?
That's a great question. I wanted to know that, some time ago as well. The answer is that interplanetary souls have a soul archetype of the same 7 that we Earth-based souls have. So it's no different. Yeah.
That's a universal structure then, if you will. And so then if you can connect the thread here with the interplanetary work to karma and dharma, and sort of like how might that relate to these two twin topics of karma that we're working out and dharma that we're working to fulfill?
Okay, good. Interplanetary souls are always evolved souls, because they basically gain their evolution somewhere else that is evolved. Earth is not an evolved planet. Other places in the celestial realm where these interplanetary souls come from, I call it their soul's home base, they are evolved. They still have karma to work on. So they don't come here, if there is such a thing as perfectly evolved, and I don't really think there is such a thing. They come here to also keep working on their karma. At the same time, they bring their gifts and their wisdom and their perspective. One example I often use is think about some of these children that are showing up today. I always forget this little girl's name. There's a young, I think she's 8, 9, 10 years old. She's often on the Ellen DeGeneres show. She has the knowledge of the U.S. presidents at her fingertips. She can name them. She can name dates. She can name certain information about them. It's just right there. You might call her a certain type of dilettante. I can't imagine she's not one of these interplanetary souls. She brought these amazing gifts with her.
Fascinating. Well, I'd love for maybe another story or two to kind of keep bringing this interplanetary soul trajectory alive, so people understand how it relates to and why it's relevant to understanding our current life.
Well, I think it's relevant because my sense is that the people who are listening today, and probably many, if not most of the people that are drawn to the creative, evolutionary, peace-building, the programs that you offer, they're not young souls. If they were young souls, they'd be out, I don't know, washing their car, or, I don't mean to put down anybody who's washing their car, but they wouldn't have more of an evolutionary, higher focus perspective on life, a progressive perspective on life. So that means that the audience are certainly more evolved than less evolved. And in that audience, so let me back up, these statistics might be helpful. On the planet, more evolved souls are somewhere in the range of about 5 to maybe 7% of the planet. We don't live on an evolved planet. So, and this is not to minimize anybody's capability. We all have gone from step 1 to 2 to 3 in terms of evolution. So the people, the embodied souls that are listening, there are probably, a third to a half of them who either are interplanetary souls themselves and need that comfort level of being understood, or they know someone in their life. And this is going to resonate. They're going to go, oh, now I know why my nephew behaves the way he does, or my friend or my neighbor has these issues with allergies or autoimmune disorders, or, perhaps being labeled with ADHD. These are common issues that interplanetary souls deal with, and yet they're so wise and so gifted. We need them badly on the earth.
Fascinating. Well, if you can string it all together, then what do you really feel like the most important elements to we talked about 3 keys today. So we've talked about the connecting with guides. We've talked about these soul archetypes and the interplanetary aspect of our soul trajectory. So threading it all together, like what do we really need to understand about mastering our soul's journey in order to kind of take this information and make our lives more shining examples for moving forward?
Well, when I thought about this course, I really thought about what really helps us to evolve. What topics need to have more expansion or more depth or more understanding? And I started with guides because guides relate to our intuition to recognize the input and the presence of our guides. So without that, it is difficult, if not impossible, to intuit past lives, intuit our archetype, and trust that our guides are assisting us at all times. And it leads us to understand, have we had more lives not on Earth, more lives on Earth? So it's like the melding of using our intuition, tuning into our guides to understand who are we at the core? What's our archetype? What's our energy? What's our frequency? What do we bring? And then when we understand if we're Earth-based or interplanetary, then we understand ourselves in more powerful ways. And in this course, I will talk about what's unique about Earth-based souls. And I might say even more so because it's new information. As you said, I have this new book coming out that is all about interplanetary souls. It's all client information. The book is not me writing this. It's interpreting and explaining from client material. Interplanetary souls are here in greater numbers right now, greater, a greater preponderance, if you will, of experienced souls. We need to understand them. We need to use our intuition to understand where they come from, what their uniqueness is, and honor them. I'll just say that when I started working with clients more and more that were interplanetary souls, my husband and I had a grandchild born, and this grandchild, who's now almost 12, is an interplanetary soul. So I needed to understand that. In some ways, I helped our family members understand that there was nothing wrong with him at all, but he has experiences that are unique. And he's so wise and so warm and so loving. He comes from a place that is more right-brained than left-brained. There are interplanetary souls that come from places that are more left-brained than right-brained. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I want to bring people's specific attention to your upcoming program. Now, we started to talk about it some, but the program is called Soul Evolution Mastery, applying the wisdom of your guides, soul archetype, and interplanetary past lives. So you can find this course laid out at soulevolutioncourse.com. Again, that's soulevolutioncourse.com. It's going to be a 7-week program, brand new material here, and it doesn't require that you have previous background, although getting up to speed on some of these concepts can be helpful. And it really is a very, very practical orientation. It's not just a metaphysical understanding of the universe. It's like, how does this apply to your life? How do you really apply understandings? There's some sophisticated understandings from all of this research to becoming a more masterful soul in this lifetime. And so I'd love for you, Linda, to share in your own words what people are going to come away with and what kind of value they're going to get from taking the 7-week journey with you, which people, again, you can find the details at soulevolutioncourse.com.
Yeah, I think that it really is. I love this term mastery, which came out of a conversation, Stephen, with some of your wonderful people that are good at wordsmithing, and this notion of when we master our soul's evolution, we come to embrace who we are at a deeper level. We become much more aware of our guides' input. Our guides are there all the time. They're going to help us moment by moment, day by day. We're the ones that forget to tune in. So as we master who we are, we accept our soul archetype. We also accept the soul archetype of others around us. And then we understand oh, I'm very comfortable in an earth body. I operate fairly well. I mean, I'm an earth-based soul. I have my own issues on earth, but I cope moderately well with earth life. But why doesn't my daughter? Why doesn't my friend? Why doesn't my grandchild? Or why don't I? And what do I do? Just like my client yesterday, the man I described, he needed validation. He needed to understand even more so that someone got him, that his guides were helping him be embodied on earth and to embed him. They actually took him on a journey into the earth. We'll be doing journeys like this in the course. Then we understand how to keep evolving, how to keep assisting the planet, how to keep understanding and helping the evolution of other people that are important in our life.
This is totally fascinating information. I know people are in for a real treat. So let's go into a little more detail. So first of all, the course is going to be on Tuesdays at 4 Pacific time, and there's 4 main modules. And Linda, I'd love for you to give us a tour of those 4 main modules.
Well, the modules, so let's talk about modules 1, 2, and 3 first. So module 1. We're diving into intuition and guides because I want the people in the course to have a pretty solid grasp of using their intuition and connecting with guides. Usually we have more than one, so we're going to work on that. I'll be teaching about the difference between guides and guidance for interplanetary souls versus Earth-based souls. But Module 1 is intuition and guides, tuning in, recognizing our own guidance and our guides. Number 2 is digging in, going deep into what are each of these 7 archetypes? I'm going to give examples of famous people of these archetypes so we can understand it. How do we discover our soul archetype, whether we know about our past lives? And you remember that if it's an immortal soul archetype, it will show up as the thread throughout our lives. We'll be working on that. Understanding the archetypes takes a fair amount of description and depth and talking about our lives and doing some experiential. Module 3 is Earth-based and interplanetary souls. What are the unique differences? Where do we come from if we're an interplanetary soul? And really important, what are the gifts? What are the challenges? I'll bet everybody in the course, if they're not an interplanetary soul, which everybody in the course won't be, I just don't think that will happen, they know someone just like I do, whether it's my client or my grandchild. They need to understand how to parent an interplanetary soul child, how to work with a partner who's an interplanetary soul. So that's Module 3. Module 4 is the integration. I might call it the 7th archetype. Module 3 is the integration of all of this information to help each person in the course keep moving forward, keep transforming in their own life to keep evolving and assist the planet's evolution as well.
Great. And I should note that make sure people are aware that each of these first 3 modules are 2 sessions each. So you're diving deep into that subject material for 2 weeks, and then there's the integrative culmination of it all. So again, you can find all the details at soulevolutioncourse.com. We'll just share a little bit more about some highlights. So not only do you get the 7 90-minute class sessions with Linda, which includes the live time and interactive Q&A time, so you can really get your deepest questions addressed. It's sort of like a great opportunity to find out some of these more esoteric information and just get access to it. We also have things you can do at home on every week. We've got a Facebook community. We have unlimited recordings, downloads, PDF transcripts, and we also have some great extra bonus sessions. One of them is a PDF article and book chapter from Linda called Soul Discovery Teachings. Another you can see on the page is the 7 soul archetypes, your soul evolution and humanity soul evolution, which is also Linda is an audio teaching. And so this is really getting at, again, a deeper dive at discovering what it is that our soul 7 archetypes are and how does that relate to our evolution, relate to the evolution of humanity, which is really at the core of what the Shift Network exists for. And ultimately what I suspect most of you incarnated to do as well. We are incarnate to learn and grow, but also to serve the larger evolution. That's a great bonus for that. Another bonus that we have, what you can see on the page, is called Past Lives and the Time Between, the purpose of your life today. Linda, you want to share a little bit more about that? That's a great presentation. The whole between lives conversation is important and relevant for what?
Well, that's the key question that so many people ask is, why am I here? What's my purpose? What do I need to be doing? It's always easy for me to think about examples. A person I worked with recently is dealing with a health issue. She's dealing with a pretty serious health diagnosis. She's been, you might say she's been neglecting her well-adapted, very strong capability in artistic skills for years and years. She's left her job temporarily. It was a much more left-brained kind of job. It didn't really make her heart sing, you might say. So we have a life purpose, and her guides are, and this is what she and I talked about today, her guides are pushing her in the direction of living the core of who she is and her skills. She probably has that 4th archetype in her energy, and she's been casting that aside. So when we understand our life purpose, it ties into our archetype. And I was just thinking, Stephen, as you were talking, sometimes people feel drawn to these courses because in one way or another, perhaps they feel stuck. In a way, this woman I just described is feeling stuck. She's left her job temporarily because of this health issue. She's looking for ways to expand herself. She believes she'll get beyond this health issue. She's a little bit worried. Her guides are pushing her into her life purpose. I think they're pushing her into either her soul archetype or her personality archetype, which is these artistic, you might say, endeavors that bring us that what you might call the more cultural sharing of music and art and creativity. So life purpose is highly important.
Fantastic. Well, again, folks, you can find all the details at soulevolutioncourse.com. And a few more things about this. First of all, it starts on May 29th, and as we said, on Tuesdays. And we also kept the investment really accessible, so you get all the extra bonuses, the full 7 weeks, and a lot of just good community time. This is a great community of explorers that you're going to be connecting with. And the investment is just 3 payments of $109, or you save about 10% when you pay in full at $297. So it's a lot of great value, and I should say that there's also one extra bonus for you to go to the page today, and if you sign up today by midnight, then you get an extra bonus. We like to do this as a way to encourage you to make a decision now while you're fresh and you're hearing all this information, give you a chance to tune in with your own knowing if this is the right next step for your growth and evolution. And if you do get a yes, then you've got an extra gift for doing so today. So that is a video presentation from Linda on soul evolution, life purpose, past lives, and the time between. So going deeper into this whole broad arc. And Linda, you want to share anything special about that extra bonus which people get when they sign up today?
Well, that extra bonus is about a 2-hour program that I taught. So it's kind of a broad-based perspective of soul evolution. And I know that people are always interested in past lives. That'll be a thread in this new course. But that extra bonus has me talking about how do we discover our past lives in our current life? How do our past lives show up in our current life? There are ways to figure out our past lives without regression. So that some of that will be included and explained in that 2-hour workshop presentation. That is that extra bonus.
Fantastic. Well, again, you can get all of the information at soulevolutioncourse.com. Again, soulevolutioncourse.com. And when you sign up today, you get that extra 2-hour full. That's a lot of value, extra bonus when you sign up now. And there's also a subtler reason, like when you sign up and make a commitment to something, it does start to activate a growth process in you. So when you sign up today, you not only get the extra bonus, but you also start to cook. You start to open. You start to, there's a way in which things start to move and get catalyzed when you make a commitment now. So I encourage you to tune in, and if you're getting a yes, to go for it, because there's really no risk, and it's a money-back guarantee of your satisfaction. So, Linda, fascinating hour again today. I felt like there was a real precision in naming each of these different dimensions of this higher, aspect of the guidance and our soul archetypes. It really feels like you keep getting more precise in how you're sharing distilling the wisdom from all of this research you've done over the years. And so I felt like it was great. And anything that's still on your mind or heart that you want to share with folks who are considering taking the next step by joining the Soul Evolution Mastery Program?
Well, I'll just say, Stephen, that as I thought about this course, it's like for those people who've taken a course with me, there will be new information. For those people that have not taken a course with me, there'll be basic explanation and understanding. But I tuned into my guides as I was thinking about this course, and it's like, what elements need a deeper focus to help us keep evolving? What deeper understanding is needed in greater depth in this new course? And that came to me as everybody knows now, soul archetype and personality archetype, archetypal energy, and along with, am I an earth-based soul? What does that mean? What are the characteristics? How can I embrace all that about myself? What's an interplanetary soul? And how can I support either myself and understand myself as an interplanetary soul, which I find is greatly needed by these clients that keep showing up in my work life. And again, if we don't wrap it in the package of using our intuition and our own guidance that comes from our guides, and remember, everybody, one of your guides is your highest level of soul evolution. One of our guides is always our higher self. That's part of our team of guides. And so that it has to be packaged with intuition and knowing our guides are right there. They're bringing events, experiences, people, relationships, grandchildren, unique grandchildren, into our life, children, unique children. So that's it. It just came to me, and I know that my guides were saying, okay, Linda, put all this together and present it and let people, feel the pull, feel the draw, as you describe it, Stephen, to diving in.
Great. Well, you're clearly practicing that which you're teaching, and in terms of getting the guides to weigh in on this, and then really to say what is the next evolution here of your work and your teaching and our offering of that through the Shift Network. So very grateful to be working with you. I think you bring a lot of clarity and precision into these more further out woo-woo kind of areas with a lot of very psychological and spiritual and scientific real rigor. So it's great to be able to go to the leading edge of what we know and to do so in a way that's very clear-eyed and really is helpful for how do we live our lives. So thank you, Linda, and thank you all for joining. I hope you found this last hour as illuminating as I did. And if you want to go further in your soul evolution mastery, you are warmly welcome. It starts May 29th, and you get signed up today. You get the full 2-hour extra bonus when you do so at soulevolutioncourse.com. So thank you, Linda, and thank you all, and see you on the other side.
Thank you.